All right, what's going on YouTube? This is BoxingWave. Before I get started discussing Errol Spence and Danny Garcia, just want to make one statement. We want to keep it very mature here, okay? You guys that are new to the channel, let's just try to keep away from the immature comments. Let's try to avoid the comments about politics and race and all of that stuff. Let's keep it boxing here. The majority of the subscribers here keep it boxing. All right. A lot of new people come here, from other channels. They want to discuss things that don't really involve boxing like that. Please, I know the election is coming up. Let's just keep it boxing because the politics it turns into a toxic thing. People are going to start arguing about it in the comments. I already seen a few comments left. Someone even emailed me recently just asking let's keep it boxing, please. All right. So let's talk Errol Spence and Danny Garcia. Now, I made videos about this potential fight before COVID. This is post the accident with Errol Spence, and this was, pre-COVID. And what I said back then is, I want to see what Errol Spence can do. I'm giving him a pass on fighting a top welterweight. I said that I wouldn't mind if he fought someone outside of Terrence Bud Crawford, because the last thing I want to see is if he fights Bud, or Pacquiao, or of course he wouldn't pass up an opportunity with Pacquiao, but if he were to fight a Bud or even a Danny Garcia, I think it was risky just not knowing his condition after the accident. All right. I know he seemed fine. I know he didn't get any major head injuries. I know he got some swelling in his teeth and stuff like that, bruises. Cool, all good. But I kind of wanted to see where he stood and just to make sure he was okay. All right. Now, again, this was pre-COVID. Everybody had to take a sit and wait to see where the sport was going to go, where sports in general was going to go. And, boxing has been back on for a couple months now. And Errol's going to be defending his title against Danny Garcia. All right. Now, look, as far as it being a pay-per-view, I'm not a big fan of this being a pay-per-view. All right. I've never been a big fan of pay-per-views, period. One of the few channels that will tell you that I'm boycotting pay-per-views. I don't buy many of them, but I do buy a few. I am going to pay for it this weekend because overall I like the card. Overall, we get in a unification match. Jamal's fighting a good contender at 160, a proven contender at 160, and the undercard is pretty solid. So I will be paying this weekend and supporting those guys, but the other pay-per-views that we're getting this year, I'm probably not going to pay for, to be honest, and including this. That's not because it's not a good fight. It is a good fight, and even if Errol was to not get into that car accident, Danny Garcia is a good fighter. All right, but Danny Garcia, I know this is going to come off disrespectful to him, but I'm just being honest here. Danny Garcia is the weakest top tier fighter at welterweight. I'm not gonna go as far as calling him the gatekeeper because he's more than a gatekeeper. Okay, but when it comes to those top tier fighters between Bud, Errol, Porter, Thurman, Pacquiao, I rate them all above Danny Garcia. He hasn't proven to me that he should have gotten as many world title opportunities at welterweight. Going up to welterweight, yeah, you were the man at 140 at the time. I believe he was unified at 140. So moving up to welterweight, it made sense for him to get a title shot right away. You know, I think he fought Paulie or something back then. But you beat Paulie, you beat Brandon Rios, you know, you beat guys like Adrian Granados, you know, you fought Ivan Redcash last. Those fights are just not cutting it, you know. And he lost to the main fighters he fought. You know, Thurman, Porter. He didn't get destroyed. He didn't get dominated. But he doesn't have the super impressive welterweight resume. You know, and I say that because the people that don't want Bud to fight Spence, because let's just call it what it is. There are people online that will argue to death why Bud doesn't deserve a title shot against Spence. But Spence could fight whoever he wants to fight, and they're all cool with these fights. You know, Mikey can come up for 135. I know it was a good name to have on your resume. I know Mikey's the one that was doing all the talking. He was calling out Keith Thurman too. I get it. But Bud came up. He won a title. And it's all politics. We already know what it is. What did Danny do more than Kell Brook? You know? I know Kell Brook don't have the greatest resume. I know I'm not saying he fought the very best at welterweight, because he didn't. But he did give Sean Porter his first L. And I know that's just one fight. But that's a bigger accomplishment than any other accomplishment that Danny Garcia has gotten at welterweight. Or in his career. Even at 140. You know, I know Danny knocked out Amir Khan. And that was his biggest win. You know, it was a big win. Khan was still in his prime. All right. He knocked him out. You know, wasn't the first to do it, but it was a big win. All right. But Kell Brook beat Sean Porter. And Sean was undefeated. You know. And Sean beat Danny Garcia. All right. It was a competitive fight. But Sean gave him an L. But Danny will continue to get title opportunities because he's on the right side of the street, basically. You know? And it's a guy with a name. And it's the safest, dangerous fight. You know? It's the most winnable of the top tier fighters. It's the most winnable. Because I'll believe that those guys I named earlier, Bud, Spence, Porter, Thurman, and Pacquiao, are better. And you know what? I will still rate. I know Kell hasn't been fighting at welterweight and stuff like that. He went and lost. I will still rate Kell Brook over Danny until Danny wins a meaningful fight at 147. He hasn't, but he's gotten, 4 title opportunities at this point? Like 3 or 4? Come on, man. Now, about the fight, and this is not a breakdown video. I think Errol, this is all about what condition is Errol in post-accident. Is Errol the same Errol? You know, we can only speculate. I believe Errol is fine. I believe that. I don't have proof of that. We have to see fight night. And if Errol is to get knocked out somehow, does it necessarily mean that it was because of the accident and he's not the same? Or is it because Danny's just caught him with a good shot? Who knows? You know? What I won't do is not give Danny his credit. I know I said all I said just now, but I will still continue to give Danny credit if he is to win. Because again, he's still a top tier fighter. I just think that he's the weakest one of the top tier. Alright? But yeah, it's all about Errol. Because I personally believe, and this is my opinion, because they haven't fought yet and I don't know. My opinion is that Errol is going to dominate Danny. And when I say dominate, maybe not knock him out or anything like that. What I'm saying is, I think he is going to beat Danny clearer than Thurman did and Porter did. Okay? I think he's going to be the one that separates himself from everybody else that's fought Danny up to this point. You know? I mean, they do already have a few opponents in common. And Errol has done better. I believe he's done better. They both fought Sammy Vargas. They both fought Sean Porter. Who else they both fought? Sean Porter. Who's the other guy? There's somebody else. I can't think right now. I just said it. Anyway, I think Errol is going to make it look easier than everybody else did. You know? No one's made it look easy. You know, there's people that beat him. There's people that I thought beat Danny, like Marisa Herrera. But I believe that Errol is going to make, and I think Errol has the majority of the advantages between the both of them. You know, I think Danny, he needs to be in that sweet spot. And I think Errol has proven in several fights that he knows how to stay distant. You know, if you want to see the best example of that, take a look at the Lamont Peterson fight. You know, take a look at that fight. If you want to see Errol maintain his distance and keep someone in his jab, you know, and really make great use of his jab, look at that fight. You know, Errol could fight good on the inside. We already know that. You know, we know Errol can dog it out. But Lamont Peterson, that is what he does. And Errol fought it smart. He could have fought Lamont's fight. He could have done it, but he didn't do it that way. He said, you know what? I'm going to break you down from the outside first. And that's what he did. And I was very impressed with that. Also, Errol has the speed advantage as well. You know, he has the speed advantage as well. He has the reach advantage as well. I think Danny has to be a mid-range. He's not a good inside fighter, and he's not a great outside fighter neither. You know, he has short arms. He's slow. All right. He got a great left hook counter, and if Errol, you know, gets greedy, he'll get clipped. You know. You know, I don't know if Errol's trying to go for the kill here and try to get a stoppage. I think that would be risky. I think Danny is probably, one thing I would say about Danny, A, he's a good counterpuncher. He's slow, but he's a good counterpuncher. B, he probably has one of the best chins in boxing, pound for pound. Okay, I don't even think this guy had been knocked down even in the amateurs or anything. I don't think he's ever been knocked down before, you know. And he's never been badly hurt, you know. He's been hurt. He's been rocked. But he's never been badly hurt. And I don't think Errol's going to do it. You know, I think Errol has shown that he can fight a very responsible fight. You know, even when he fought Mikey, you know, I know towards the end of the later rounds, he started really digging into Mikey and started putting the pressure on. I think he was trying to get a stoppage in some of those later rounds. But I think Errol, you know, what I seen him do with a Peterson, what I seen him do with a Mikey Garcia, even with Sean Porter, you know, I think he's gonna be very responsible against Danny, you know, because it's still a dangerous fight. Danny can punch, all right, and Danny can counter, you know, and that left hook he has can definitely hurt you if you get caught. You know, exchanging punches, you know, trading. So Errol has to be careful. I think he's going to be fine. And if Errol is still Errol, the Errol that I think he still is, I think he's going to make it look easier than any other opponent we've seen up to this point. You know, I might do a breakdown of it. But this is off the top, you know, this is not me viewing anything. This is just, you know, I watch both of these guys fight so many times. I know how Danny fights. I've been watching Danny for a long, long time now, you know, and I've been watching Errol pretty much his whole pro career, and some of his amateur stuff too. Yeah, man. I think Errol is just what he's been through. Seeing him fight Kell Brook, going out there, beating Kell Brook. Kell Brook that was outboxing him, and Kell Brook that I predicted to win. I thought it was too soon, but you know, a lot of people picked Errol because of what the beating that Kell just took from Triple G. But Kell was doing fine boxing. Errol had to dog it out to win that fight. You know, he had to really dog him out. You know, he went Carson Jones on Kell Brook. You know, I was very impressed with that thing. I think that was a tougher challenge. You know, and to have that experience fighting him, have the experience of fighting a Peterson and a Porter. You know, putting Porter down. You know, actually hurting him. You know, I think all of that stuff makes Errol, you know, Errol, to me, Errol, I mean, if we're taking Pacquiao out of the discussion because he's an all-time great already. I'm not talking about him because I don't really know how he mixes it up with a Bud or Errol at this age. I think Pacquiao, wherever you want to put him in his prime, even his prime welterweight years, I would still put him above just about anybody, you know, even a Bud, even, you know, the Bud. I love Bud, but I can't see Errol really, you know, if we remove Pacquiao out of it, I can't see Errol at this stage losing to anyone outside of Bud. And I feel like if him and Bud don't fight each other soon, I feel like, you know, the longer, you know, it goes and Bud starts getting up there in age because he's a little older. You know, he goes into 35, 36-year-old and they finally get the fight going. At that point, I'm going to give the advantage to Spence. Because at this point, I don't think the fight's going to happen. You know, and if it does, Bud's going to be past his prime a little bit. You know? But anyway, yeah, you know, I'll probably do another video talking more about the welterweights overall. But I have Errol winning this one. And I think he's going to put a very impressive performance against Danny. You know. Again, you know, I know how this is going to come off with Danny. And Danny has won good fights. He's, you know, Danny against Matisse was my very first video on here. That's how long I've been here. You know, that was my first prediction video ever. And Danny is a very impressive fighter. You know, I picked him to win that night, even though the majority of people thought Matisse was going to pull off the win. Danny is very impressive. But once he got the welterweight's a different beast, man. You know, it's a different thing. Not too many people from 140, even the dominant guys, can come up and do the same thing at 147. Not too many guys done it in recent years. So, I have Errol winning by a decision, by a unanimous decision, and I think it's going to be a wide score. All right. But as far as him not being the same, I think that's the one thing in question here. The one key thing that we're all looking out for. And I think he's been fine. And I see that I've seen a few videos over the months, and he looks like he's been staying in shape instead of getting fat and stuff, which is very good. I think he needs to at this point. You know, I think these boxers need to be responsible, chill with the drinking, driving, all that. Just be responsible. Hopefully he stays that way. You know, because I know when after the accident, there was some videos that came out. People were saying he was drunk in interviews and all this stuff. I don't think he was drunk. I think his jaw was just messed up. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see. But I have Errol winning, you know. I mean, for Danny, what I want to see from Danny at this point, and again, please, because I got to repeat stuff, because I know people got to leave comments. This is not a bad fight at all. I just believe that out of those top 6 or 7 fighters at welterweight, I would put Danny like almost dead last. You know, right now, I would put him. It's 5 guys that I know. It's a solid 5 guys that I would just put in front of Danny. Doesn't make it a bad fight. It's not a bad fight. I'm fine with this fight. Before the accident, after the accident, it's just that I want to see the Bud fight more. You know, but I understand what this fight is. You know, it's a great tune-up. It's a dangerous tune-up, but it is a tune-up. It is a tune-up. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that, man. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you guys check in with me this Saturday. I'll be on all day Saturday. You know, starting 3 p.m. Eastern. I'll be on here covering the DAZN and the Showtime pay-per-view. All right. So I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.